Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I actually want to talk to you about PhD options after an MBA, or thinking about what you should do after your MBA. What is your next degree after an MBA? So actually, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and this is something that we often have to deal with and think about. It's something that I had to do, and in fact, that's why I created the whole reciprocity project. The E is written with a 3, is so that I can pay some of the stuff that I learned forward. So I have a lot of stuff on this YouTube channel all about going and becoming a PhD and what it's like, what you should expect, sort of decisions along the way. And then as well, I'm trying to create this reciprocity proofreading, sharing economy proofreading platform. You could check that out as well. So what would you do, or what would I recommend that you should do or look at in terms of PhD options after an MBA? So first of all, if you are curious about the world and you are thinking about doing research, then stay tuned. But if you are more of a person that is interested in sort of executing in the world and getting things done and sort of applying your MBA that you've done, I would choose these couple of options that I think are really good. These are perfectly amazing options. They're going to do a world of good in terms of benefiting you if you're thinking about another degree after this, or something like a sort of post-education of some sort. They're going to benefit you tremendously. The first one is thinking about a law degree of some sort, trying to extend your MBA. I have a very good friend of mine that did that, and he did his LLB, which is a law degree in Canada. I think it's JD here in the United States. And he just did that after his MBA, or he did that jointly with an MBA. Does very well with that, and you would do very, very well with that. I know a lot of people, or several people, that have done that, where they have an MBA and a law degree combined. It sort of puts you in a position that is rare in both the business environment and as well as the law environment. So then you can go into either one of them, and you pick and choose. You can go into sort of a corporate practice of some sort and sort of practice law and a partnership. Usually, from what I understand, and I'm not perfect and I don't know everything, but usually what people do is they go into the sort of practice and partnership, and they do that for a few years. And at a moment, they either decide to become a partner and go that route, or they choose to work with a business, and they work and become sort of their legal counsel for a specific large company. And that's a perfectly amazing route. You will do very well in any of those routes. And a second one that you might consider is doing an accounting degree. And that is just kind of going and getting your CPA. So if you've done any sort of accounting specialty, just go get your CPA designation. After that, you have to write a couple of tests and stuff like that. But in general, it's going to benefit you. It's relatively easy to get, not easy, but it is easier to get than doing a PhD or doing something like that where you're extending your education. Go out. Another one you could choose is a CFA for finance. And I think there's 1, 2, and 3 levels, if I believe, in terms of your CFA that you get. Again, relatively low cost in terms of what you're going to do. It's going to be a couple of years of getting that, and that's pretty good as well. I think there's also a patent examiner designation that you can get. You could check out that. I'm not really all that familiar with it, but you can look at that. That's also a really good one, and that can help you out going forward. But in terms of the PhD, and there's other ones that you can do. So again, sort of practical ones, looking into getting some sort of securities license, going out and getting a actuarial sort of degree where you're going into insurance and looking at risk management and things like that. Those are really perfectly good options that I would consider if you're thinking about more of the execution side and you're still thinking about doing more education, because they're going to give you pretty good bang for your buck. The return on investment definitely is there for those. But if you're interested in doing sort of research, you're curious about the world, and you are just, you're just really curious, Look at the other videos that I put out. You'll notice that I do mention that it's very difficult. It's very tough to do a PhD. You're looking at like 5 years of doing a PhD in general. If you do a DBA, unless it's at Harvard, which is a real research-oriented school, and PhD in business administration is going to be about 5 years. DBA, maybe 3 to 4. There's reasons for that. You can watch some of the other videos, but in general, just expecting it's going to be 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7 years, depending on who you are, and getting this degree done. And that's a pretty big investment, the opportunity cost. So if you've already taken an MBA, you would have learned about an opportunity cost already. The opportunity cost is quite high. You're forfeiting a pretty good salary for an extended period of time. So I did my own financial calculation with a PhD, and it put me at about 55. Somewhere in my 50s when I was actually going to recoup my costs. I'm actually an engineer in, that's my background. But I did a PhD in innovation, or it was actually general management. And, it's pretty long to recoup the costs. However, there is benefits or implicit benefits that you're never going to see rather than the explicit benefits you're going to see. So for example, you're going to be curious about the world and discover things. It's really fun. That way, it's a grind. It is definitely a meritocracy. So, whatever you put in, you get out in terms of the rewards, maybe. You can watch some of my other videos on that as well. But in general, it's pretty close to a meritocracy as it gets. However, I just won't go there right now. I won't talk about that. It's a long discussion. So in general, if you're thinking about doing a PhD after an MBA, what you might want to consider to look at are a PhD in business administration, doing a PhD in quantitative finance, for example. It's going to be really tough. You're definitely going to have a mathematics background. You can do a PhD in industrial psychology, which is really interesting because you're going to learn about a bunch of psychology stuff, that you're probably not, you're not going to learn about nearly as much. You could do a PhD in marketing, for example, which is going to be definitely psychology oriented as well, consumer psychology. You could do a PhD in sociology in a sociology department. Really interesting stuff, and there's lots of people that actually do stuff that's relevant for organizations. And from a person that studies strategy, we would look at basically 3 fields as sort of our core fields of saying this is our mother field, I guess. Economics, PhD in economics, you could do that as well. You could do a PhD in sociology, or you could do a PhD in psychology. Those are pretty close to being, in my field. In finance is different. It's going to be much more sort of mathematics and statistics and things like that. But, those are the ones that are going to be sort of influential, and we're going to read those journals as well. So that's what we do. We read those particular journals: American Journal of Sociology, American Sociological Review, psychological science, things like that. That's what we're going to learn. You could also do, there's a great program at Stanford that's in the engineering school, and it's management science. And there's a couple of programs around the world. I did my master's at Waterloo, where it's management science, but it's software oriented. It's not necessarily about optimization. There's a couple of people that are doing things that are geared towards organizations, so you could check them out. Great people that are there as well. But I wanted to point out, so here's the thing before you go out and sort of choose the PhD options after your MBA. What you should really think about is, what is the external market going to think about this particular PhD? So you can do PhDs in those particular mother fields, and we are going to learn from them. In academia, they're considered very good to get journal or your papers published in those particular journals and stuff like that. And that would be very, very good, even in a business school. However, the external market, so you as well as, any sort of practitioner. They're going to look to see if you have a PhD in business administration. And from that fact alone is going to sort of give you a boost in your salary. So in most schools across the country, across the world, the salaries in a PhD, or salaries once you get a PhD in business administration, because you go and work in a college of business, or something relevant in that particular area, as generally as a professor, you will get higher wages. And it's unfortunate because, the knowledge is just as good in any other particular area. They're just as talented, if not smarter, in some of those other particular areas. It's just that there is the external perception of the value of a PhD in business administration. And so you could check out, the salaries are generally higher. I have a video about, what that is, and you can check those things out. Because of that, I would probably recommend, if you're choosing this route, particularly because you have an MBA, if you didn't have an MBA or something that's related in that area, I probably wouldn't recommend this route because it'll be tough to get into a business school. But I would recommend that you would do a PhD in business administration at a college, at a business school, across the world, and look at that just because of that fact. If you're thinking of doing a PhD and getting into those particular sub-disciplines that you find interesting, and studying those particular sub-disciplines, so whether it's finance, whether it is sociology, or whether it is strategy, or marketing or something like that, you're going to learn all of the sort of the material that you would learn in like a sociology department, but it's going to be focused. The focus is going to be on businesses and organizations or markets. If you're doing, say, a PhD in finance, you're going to learn statistics and a ton of statistics, but it's going to be really focused on how markets actually work. So you're going to be applying that to how, prices fluctuate, or, what is the return on investment or something, the kind of things like that are going to be much more applied to the business environment, so you can demonstrate a return on investment for people that are interested in that particular area. So that's all I wanted to talk about. And that's the kind of advice that I wanted to point out is just think about that in terms of, I'm trying to be as helpful as I possibly can. Just think of that. That's a really important thing to consider, because you don't want a PhD that, is highly valued in academia, but then is not going to command the same sort of salary because of the market perceptions of it, external market perceptions of it. So you could check it out. You can, watch some of my other videos. I put out all kinds of stuff like this. Make sure you do give me a thumbs up if you like this. If you're interested in doing a PhD after it, you could put some comments as well. And let me know where you're interested in doing your PhD. I'd be curious in what you're thinking of doing. Just curious about what's happening in your life. So that's it. Take care and have a wonderful day. All right. Bye.